It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back. You are tuned into your Feel Good Breakfast Show Expresso right here on S3. Welcome to it. We are in your company up until 9 o'clock. But here's a question for you to start off your Tuesday morning. Is walking barefoot good for you? Let that sink in for a second. Now, of course, many of us associate the feeling of bare feet with relaxation and freedom, but what are the actual health implications? Now, today we are joined by esteemed podiatrist Sean Pincus to delve into this topic. And if you have an opinion or you would like to share something, pop us a voice note via WhatsApp. We'd love to hear from you, 063 408 8863. Sean, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Good morning, guys.
Yeah, let's talk about feet.
Shoes or not, my friend, shoes or not.
To shoe or not to shoe?
And here very proudly representing Cape Podiatry, so thank you to your team for letting you out of the cage early this morning. If you could choose right now, would your shoes be on or off?
I would probably be I'm more habitually shod. So, and this is where the discussion goes, is if you look at what are feet meant to do, feet are designed to be without shoes.
For sure.
They are definitely designed
through evolution over millions.
If you look
and
at
millions
evolution, first evidence of upright walking was one of the early hominins, Australopithecus.
Wow.
About 4 million years ago. And there's actually fossilized footprints in the Olduvai Gorge in Tanzania, which go back 3.5 million years.
Wow. Yeah,
So we've been standing upright on our feet for a hell of a long time.
Yeah.
But if you look at modern footwear, if you look at footwear, the first evidence of footwear was, we used to think it was around 10,000 years ago. But there's actually evidence that came out last year by a colleague of mine, Bernard Zipfel, who's at Wits University, he's a podiatrist and paleontologist, found that there's actually evidence of footwear 150,000 years ago.
My word.
Okay.
So the question is, if, call it early modern man, was putting shoes on their feet, be it rudimentary, just wrapping their feet up with grass or bark or whatever they were using, if they found it enough evidence to protect their feet, why do we think we're smarter and take our shoes off?
Okay.
That's an interesting notion.
What brand were the shoes that they were wearing back then?
Grass. Grass.
Yeah, well, it's a tough one.
Yeah, so it was, they would literally wrap their feet up. You know, and that 150,000 years ago was almost at the end of the Ice Age. So they were running around, literally, the footprints were found in the Southern Cape. And there were sharp rocks. And I actually chatted to Bernard last night just to say, give me a couple of pointers here. This is a big one.
Take me way back.
What they thought was that, you know, imagine you're a caveman 150,000 years ago chasing a saber-toothed tiger down the beach and you cut your foot on the rock.
Yeah.
You're going to fail the hunt and you're going to get an infection and die.
Yeah, cheers.
Yeah. So that's what I say. If they found it enough reason to protect their feet, why do we think we're cleverer than them? You know? So that's why footwear developed. And if you look at the evolution of footwear through the ages, from just being there essentially as a protective device of the foot to keep the foot warm. You know, it's ice cold in the middle of an ice age. You've got, you know, bear skin and all kinds of animal skins to keep your body warm, but your feet are cold.
Yeah, exactly.
And everybody will know that if your feet are cold, you're cold.
Then you are cold.
100%. Yeah,
Exactly.
But that's how you cool down. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I got to ask as well, because obviously, you know, as we, you know, modernized ourselves and information and the studies, everyone has seen, you know, a picture of a foot and all the different organs that it's connected to, apparently. And, you know, with massages, you can heal the stomach or the whatever the case may be. First and foremost, walking barefoot. Let's go there. What are some of the healthier reasons why we should look at walking barefoot?
Okay, so the first thing is, if you take your shoes, if you look at the shape of the foot, very few shoes, modern shoes, are designed correctly that match the foot.
Okay.
If you design a shoe that matches the foot shape, most people are going to go, oh, that doesn't look nice, because the shape of the foot is not the same. Feet don't taper to a point.
For sure. They splay.
They splay.
And that's what they're
So if you look at the first thing to take your shoes off, you're going to allow your foot to spread. You're going to allow the foot to have its natural shape and natural contours. But that said, the shape of the foot is a lot more nuanced than what we think. And as podiatrists, we look at those, call it micro nuances when we're designing innersoles or orthotics and how to manage the foot and how to control the foot. But the first thing, if you take your shoe off, your foot's going to be allowed to spread. Where people say, my feet can breathe, when I did anatomy, I didn't find lungs in feet. Feet don't have to breathe. But remember that the
Smell someone's shoes, yo. Yeah.
you don't want to breathe sometimes. Sometimes in my rooms you don't want to breathe. But the shape and structure of the foot needs to be allowed to function, and there's a very specific form and way in the way it functions. If you look at a footstep, a human footstep takes around 650 milliseconds. And in that 650 milliseconds, the foot has to do a variety of things. It's got to arrive on the floor. It's got to accept the force of the floor coming into the foot and the body going into the floor.
Wow.
It's got to adapt to the surface that it's on. It's got to control the weight of the body above it. It's got to send the brain information, what surface am I on and what do we need to do about it? And then it's got to do what the brain tells it to do. And then it's got to prepare and become a rigid lever and tow you off. And it does
And it's doing this all in how long?
650 milliseconds, so less than a second. So when we put people across a pressure plate and we just look at normal walking speed, it's around 650 milliseconds. Some people are a bit faster, some people are a bit slower, but a gait step or a footstep that's longer than around 800 milliseconds is usually a pathology involved.
There's something wrong.
Or the person is aged.
Sure.
So the foot's doing an incredible amount of work every single footstep. And the foot is a tactile structure. So you were talking, I was listening earlier, we were talking about kids being barefoot.
Yeah.
The foot's a tactile structure. It needs to learn what it's got to do. And if you've constantly got an interface between your foot and the floor, your foot doesn't learn what it's got to do. And I'm going to go on a bit of a tangent here. When kids go to nursery school, they get given scissors and they must cut on a line and they've got to get the correct pencil grip and they tear paper and they do all sorts of stuff to learn how to use their hands.
Yeah.
And what do we do for our feet? We put them in shoes and teach them how to tie their shoelaces. And that's the level of what we teach feet to do. But the musculature of the foot is not dissimilar to the hand. And if you allow your foot to learn how to function, people can be quite adept with their feet. You look at people who are born without arms and they can function fully with their feet.
This is crazy. I'm just thinking now, the benefit of something like a karate, and I used to think it was all upper body and core strength, and it might just be the fact that they're barefoot and training hard in that space, in that state. What does this mean for the posture, for the rest of the body, for your balance? This is fascinating, some incredible insights. Stay tuned. We're going to continue this discussion on the health impacts of keeping those shoes on or off in just a moment.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back. As I would imagine, a lot of you are sitting on the edge of your bed there trying to decide, do I put my shoes on now? Do I take my shoes off? I just don't know. An incredible exploration into the benefits and the risks of walking barefoot or going sans the shoes and with the shoes on. And it's been a brilliant deep dive with podiatrist from Cape Podiatry, Sean Pincus. He's given us some absolute gems. If you have an opinion or a vital question, drop us a voice note. In fact, you can use our WhatsApp line 063-408-8863. Let's dive a little deeper. This is, I think, a lot more interesting than I anticipated this morning.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I didn't think there's so much to talk about, but there it is. I mean, just before the break, you gave us an incredible indication as to, thousands of years ago, the evidence of people walking barefoot and so forth. And then there was some evidence coming out of, like our earlier...
150,000 years ago, we were wearing shoes.
Then there was a small transitioning into shoes. We don't know what they were. But now we are conditioned to wearing shoes, right? So let's talk about the pros and cons, I think, of both. And where should we strike that balance nowadays? Because we do know the feet, it's important to support the body. That's what they are there for. But I don't feel maybe do we walk barefoot enough?
So the important thing I'm going to say is if you look at walking barefoot on natural substrate versus walking barefoot on modern surfaces, there's a difference.
Okay.
So people will say that we must be barefoot. Foot's designed to be barefoot, and it is, but it's designed to be barefoot in a natural surface.
In the wild.
In the wild, in the bush. Exactly. That's where it's designed to be barefoot. Modern humans, if you look at the evolutionary time cycles, I spoke about 4 million years ago. If you look at modern surfaces, maybe 300-400 years, it's not even a dot on that timeline.
Barely
that we've been walking on hard, flat surfaces. So the foot hasn't yet had an evolutionary chance to develop into walking on a hard, flat surface. So I always talk about urban humans and rural humans. So we are urban humans. We grew up, born in the city, grew up in the city.
Some of us 50-50, I think.
Some of us 50-50. Some of us more so. But what's happened is the foot hasn't had a chance to adapt to the surfaces that we live on. So footwear is important to protect you. That said, if you've always been in footwear, most footwear has some level of a heel drop. What do I mean by heel drop? Is the heel is thicker than the forefoot. So the foot is always in what we call an equinus position. Equinus coming from the equine horse. It's in a toe down position. The toes are lower than the heel. So the shape of the foot, I spoke about the shape of the foot being nuanced. That's one of the nuances, is that most people have what's called an ankle equinus. And if you suddenly take shoes away and you've got an ankle equinus, there's going to be greater force coming into the foot from the front of the foot. It's under the ball of the foot. That force has to go somewhere. The body is an energetic system. So when you're walking, you're creating energy. In an energetic system, you can't lose energy. It's going to go somewhere. And what it'll do is it'll go to a place where it's going to cause the injury. And that's what podiatry sees all the time, is people will get an injury. It's like, why do I always get a sore right knee? And when you look at the reasons why the right knee, the foot on the right side might be behaving differently to the one on the left, the one leg might be a bit longer than the other. And these are the small things that the force will go to that particular place and they'll always get injured on that side or side.
And transferal's hectic. It really can be so damaging.
We spoke about it off air, and it's quite an interesting point, because you mentioned during the COVID period, you guys have seen quite a lot of those injuries because now people started exercising, but it was home-based kind of things and barefoot.
So, people couldn't exercise. COVID was perhaps one of the silliest times ever created. It's just, so people would take their shoes off. I don't have to wear shoes, running around the house like a caveman, probably in a pair of underwear. Just decide, I'm going to run around my balcony and do a marathon. And you're always running in the same direction.
100%.
So the forces loading were always the same, but so repetitive that we would get phone calls and say, I can't walk. And people had stress fractures in their feet.
Sure.
I can't do anything. I live in a flat, but I've got a skipping rope. I'll start skipping. Fantastic. After 3 or 4 days, you felt brilliant.
I've lost 4 kilograms, but I can't move for the next few months.
And after 2 weeks, you'd ruptured both your Achilles tendons because your tendons are just not habituated to skipping for 15 hours a day. So people did incredible damage to themselves by suddenly going barefoot. And even a few years past COVID now, in 2024, it's 4 years. My mind's a blur.
Yeah, it's too soon still.
People are still coming in and saying the leading thing in their case history is, during COVID, I did
this, yeah.
And they haven't yet recovered from that.
Okay, so let's help them. Let's be proactive, because I feel like there is something, and I joke about the wisdom of kids, but I'm often blown away by just, if you let a child do and be, they'll show you the right way. So when it comes to our own journey, I would imagine there are so many moments where you want to sit with your client and say, I wish you had just done this. I wish you had just done this when you were this age, or your folks had looked at this. So what do we need to do to ensure a healthy balance? Because that seems to be key here, is that we're going to need time in and out of our shoes. How do we approach it from a long-term journey?
So I'm going to take road running as an example. There was a stage of about 2013 where suddenly normal traditional running shoes were bad for you, and you had to go to minimalist shoes or barefoot running.
Fat, low elevation,
Sorry. And that, again, didn't get the desired result, where they thought that by going from traditional running shoes to barefoot, you wouldn't get injured anymore. And what we found in the literature is that people got injured as much, they just got injured in different sites. So where people say to me, how can I become a barefoot runner or run in a lower drop shoe or a shoe that's got less of a heel drop? You have to habituate slowly into that. So you can't just take your shoes off today and say, I'm going to go barefoot, therefore I am, and off you go. Because I'm pretty certain that I will be seeing you, if not me, one of my colleagues around the country, will be seeing you in a few weeks to months, because something will go wrong.
There's going to be the wear and tear.
So if you're going to do that, you need to start off by saying, take your shoes off for 5% of your day, then 10% of the day, and habituate. And it actually takes around 3 to 4 years to fully habituate to become barefoot. Takes a long time.
Can you come back tomorrow and the next day and the next day?
Can make a plan.
Absolutely beautiful stuff. Thank you so much. What an enlightening and empowering discussion. I'm going to approach the way I parent differently, and I'm certainly going to approach the way I get dressed or don't get dressed in the bottom half differently.
Yeah, and look at the type of shoes you're wearing. I think if one thing, massively important as well. But there we have it. Invaluable insights indeed. And we hope you at home have found this particular discussion rather useful. And what you can do if you have any questions or queries, podiatristcapetown.co.za if you want to learn a little bit more.
Go and check it out and empower yourself. Well, speaking of being empowered, the South African Medical Fraternity got a massive badge of honor as one of our own. A heart surgeon receives a very special accolade. We'll find out more in just a moment.
Absolutely. We'll also dive into some rather interesting, diverse skin stories. Definitely worth your watch in just a while. We'll see you after the break.